Welcome back. This is the newspaper review segment on the BDTV Breakfast Show. And today we'll be reviewing our dailies. And with me, I have our in-house analyst, Mr. Mohammed Akonji, to look through the newspapers.
Mr. Good morning, Inoma. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
It's my pleasure to be here to do this with you this morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me.
How was your night?
Oh, it was good. I know fasting has started, so perhaps I woke up usual than normal from around 4 a.m. and then from there, have the pre-morning, the early morning meal, the pre-dawn meal. Maybe step out of the house and then to the office I come. The weather is actually a little bit better this morning because I remember yesterday, if you are within a Jags, for example, there's this very long queue around the Ikate MRS. So maybe because of NNPC, I'm sure you're going to be able to talk about that today.
Yes, we are.
And then I look at that this morning, and that queue, was a bit down because I know the kind of traffic it caused yesterday. Also, I think the global space too has been awashed with a whole lot of, important news. Trump's tariff kicks off today.
Yes.
I'm sure maybe you have read that in the news, So to Canada, Mexico, and but of course, it's expected that there will be retaliatory measures. So trade war, likely looms between, across these 4 countries, US, Mexico, Canada, and China, takes effect. And then the other thing I think it did that I woke up to this morning was the fact that, just like he did for USAID, he has paused funding aid to Ukraine. Maybe it's a fallout of what happened over on Friday at the Oval House, at the Oval Office. So but the aid has been paused to Ukraine now. So how they will be able to survive, in their onslaught or in their fight against Russia is another thing that we need to, maybe Europe will have to come to their aid now, because the largest funder, the biggest donor to Ukraine in terms of actually prosecuting the war with against the Russians is actually from US. So with that announcement this morning, let's see how they will be able to survive.
Anyways, let's bring it back home. Let's see what's
take it back home and look at the papers.
Let's see what's making the headlines here. So we are starting with BusinessDay, and the big story on our front page is price war rages as NNPC matches Dangote's 860 naira per litre. I think this is also one of the reasons why the traffic was just like, I don't know, it was a bit
characteristics today.
Yes, because
a bit better today. I don't know.
It felt like it wasn't Lagos. That's how it felt this morning for me.
So that's what I'm saying. Because I look at, in fact, I left home yesterday because I usually leave home around 5. But yesterday I left 6 o'clock, and I was still thinking I'll be able to get to office before 8 o'clock. But it was unfortunate. I think I got down here around 9 o'clock, and the reason was the long queues. So the long queues in MRS and Aiding. There are 2 of those. I really had no adova, but along our axis, Aiding and MRS. So the queues were very long. MRS had, people just zoom in, just breeze in and buy as I yesterday. So what I was even thinking, because there was a report, not confirmed yet, that our NNPC very close to us here is actually the largest in Lagos. Wow. So you normally, there is no day where they'll not be able to have fuel. And then when there are issues, in fuel stations, you will see the long queues. There will always be able to inundate this place. But in the last 1 week, the place just looked a bit deserted, just looked like a ghost of itself. Maybe people have actually churned away from there, and then looking for cheap petrols here and there. So I think maybe that is he. But the next question there is, Nigerians are actually happy about it, but at the same time, there are concerns that maybe price war is about to start.
Yes. Also, the petrol importers are losing
as landing cost now is about 969 per litre. So those that are importing now, that's exactly what some analysts are actually considering could be an anti-competitive strategy, or what in economics we call interdependent oligopoly. Just few marketers or few producers will just be able to dominate the market and then push off other competitors, determine the market. And in fact, even if not careful, they'll push off or push out other marketers or other sellers who cannot be able to compete favorably when it comes to pricing. So what I'm saying is, those that are importing, the landing cost, even to land it, not even now talk about before you take it to your respective depot to sell, is 969 naira. It used to be 970, 969 naira. So at 969 naira per litre, there is no way you can compete at 860. So for you to even import it, your cost of production is already 960. And then the going price at the pump has become 869. So they're already at a loss. Yes. So if you're not careful, if that trend continues, they will definitely be pushed out of the market. And that's one of the things. But NNPC, because they're also feeling the impact. Since Dangote did that last week, the announcement by Mr. Dangote has actually been able to send a very shock wave down the spine of NNPC as well to see how they are going to react. So in matching up with Dangote, saying, okay, we're also going to sell 869 in Lagos, of course 865 in Abuja, and then 870 in the north.
But what about the south? I saw that the prices are actually much more higher in the south.
Yes, so I think NNPC now, the price, they've not released an official statement yet from NNPC, official statement, but in Lagos, I confirmed to this morning, I confirmed the NNPC around here, and on the pump, on the dashboard, it's 860. I tried to look for the official release from NNPC. Or like when Dangote did his, there was an official release that, okay, there is this amount, 65 naira will actually be taken off on the ex-depot price. And then at the pump will become 869. So he's selling it, Dangote is selling, for example, to marketers at the rate of 825. So that they can sell at the pump at 860. So there was an official release to that effect. NNPC, we haven't seen that yet, but most of the stations, the one here and the one around Aja, I saw it this morning, they had 860 naira. But somebody said in Abuja, when I spoke to a friend in Abuja is 865. Then in the south, they said it is 870. But it's more expensive in the north, where it's, I think, 877 naira. So I bet, remember, the major problem, the major cost of those is because of transportation. So Lagos is actually closer here, closer to the sea. So even when they import it, they import down here. So before those trucks, they have to be able to factor in those transportation costs to move from Lagos to those places. So the farther it is from Lagos, the more expensive it is likely going to be. So I think maybe that was what explained that. But analysts were actually worried that this price war could trigger anti-competitive strategies, anti-competitive policies, where the market will just gravitate towards two dominant players. If you're not careful. So maybe not really a monopoly, but maybe we're talking about two dominant players that are actually be able to hold the whole market to ransom. In fact, one of the things that I was speaking to Mr. Umi Lebari, as one of the experts, an energy expert who I heard yesterday, was actually saying something, and I put that here. So he was criticizing the PMS wholesale market, this market here, and they're describing it in terms of being anti-competitive. So he was saying, by having the two dominant players, because market efficiency, the efficiency of the market is not only about lower prices, it's to ensure that, the efficiency of the market is not really about prices alone, but about sustainability. Because what I mean by sustainability is, if these two dominant players succeeded in pushing out the other players, and eventually the market just remains the two of them, that means they could be at liberty to do anything about pricing. So if you don't allow competitors, if you like, if you cannot compete, go. If you don't allow that to happen, and then you give them that power, that dominance in the market, the resultant effect is you will definitely be playing into their hands to allow them to be able to determine the price, and that may not be beneficial to all Nigerians in the long run. So it's a good thing. I saw Petron this morning, Dr. Billy Gilizari, Petron, the Petrol Retail Association, people that are selling, the retail owners, the retail outlets, were actually happy about it. The fact that, okay, they're actually able to at their gantries, where they load the petrol, they're getting it at cheaper rates.
Okay, let's not dwell only on that, because we also have other stories. We have how Nigeria can sustain where Naira rally. Yes. So what are your thoughts on this?
Of course. So a lot of people, exchange rate has remained a bit stable. I'm talking about Naira to the dollars, and even Naira to the pound, and even against other major currencies. So that stability since the turn of the year, we've seen that. And in fact, I think towards the last week of February, Naira gained, the February it even closed at about 1,400 for the first time in a long while. The market closed at around 1,490. And then even this week now, it has actually been able to start on that pedestal. But strategy that we need to be able to sustain it, to me, I feel like two important things actually needed to ensure that, one, the the strategy that the central bank is using, the EFEM, they need to be able to sustain that, because that entrenches transparency and integrity. Okay. So it's a willing buyer, willing seller platform. So it's an electronic foreign exchange matching system. So it allows the buyers and the sellers to be able to match, and then you have a full glare of what is available. It's like saying, this is what I want to sell, the whole amount. This is what I'm willing to buy. And then the central bank acts like a middleman to ensure that that takes place. So that also allows the black market to be able to close in, in terms of having this wider gap between the black market and the parallel market. But another thing that needs to be done, of course, is to ensure that our OPEC quota, our oil production, because the major source of those foreign revenue earnings is actually from oil. So the need to meet up that budget assumption that was signed by the president on Friday, the 2.01 billion barrels. We have not seen, I did not check OPEC quotas yet, but now we're hovering around 1.6, 1.7 million. So the more of that we can produce, the more we can be able to get foreign exchange. And that will allow us to be able to have, a hang of the market, of the exchange rate. Okay,
so system. MTN, the next story is that MTN eyes 1.34 trillion naira from tariff hike.
Okay. So I'm sure our analysts here, maybe that's the entire right, Thomas have done the story.
I think it was Deepwood that did
the story. Yes. Okay. So but what I'm just saying there is, with the new agreement between the regulators and the telecom providers, that 35% increase, in voice and data calls should be effected. I'm not sure whether they have started it already, because I bought data yesterday. I've not checked this morning. Yeah. But they have implemented 50%, whether they will go back to that. 35. But even at the present 35%, they're expected to be a lot of windfall money that MTN, you look at just MTN alone. And I'm sure because they are more or less like a market leader in that space.
Yes,
so the amount they are likely going to be able to rake in, from data purchases, from voice calls, airtime that people are buying, is going to be able to rise to the tune of that, by the time they do that. So maybe that would be a good thing, but it's the impact that is actually having on average Nigerians who are actually complaining about the excessive costs, of
data and
this data and this product that they are buying.
Okay, so let's move to, we have a political topic here, and it's mixed reaction trail Obasa's return as Lagos Assembly Speaker. So I don't know what your take is on this one, because
I mean that dominated the space in the last
since last weekend.
So maybe we've seen there were important feelers coming out from most of the gladiators, the players that are involved, in terms of maybe have we seen the end of this crisis, or is it just the beginning of another another political calculus, political permutations to happen? But what we witnessed yesterday was that the two leaders, the two speakers, the embattled, one that was sacked, Mr. Mudashiru Obasa, and the one that was sworn in on the January 13th, Madam Mojisola Miranda, were summoned by the Governance Advisory Council, which is like the highest political decision-making organ in Lagos. And then they spoke to them, and then by 11 a.m. in the morning, we saw they all return back to the house, and the woman read her resignation letter. Whether she was forced there, what we knew was, we don't know, but she read that, okay, she's resigning in the interest of peace, and to be able to, be able to ensure the smooth running of democracy in the house. Then the house re-elected. So
the same house that impeached
him, re-elected him again. I'm talking about him, Mr. Obasa. Now, after the announcement that, okay, I am resigning, they re-elected him, and they re-elected Madam Mojisola as well as the deputy speaker. While the other deputy speaker that were there, they were actually all of the elected presiding officers, those that were elected on the 13th of January, all of them resigned en bloc. So whatever the governing council said, but if you see, I'm sure another paper said it was the mediation council led by Baba Konde that was sent from Aso Rock that actually forced her out. Whether that is the case, but the tone in the statement read by the woman, left a lot to be desired.
Okay, let's move to other dailies. We'll be looking at the Punch, and the big story on the Punch is how Akonde. In fact, it's literally what we were just talking about. I think it's all over the national dailies.
Of course,
today.
it will be everywhere today.
So
it's what should be emblazoned on all the papers.
Yes. So that's uncertainty surrounds assembly leadership as APC and GAC members allay fears.
Of course, because the calls to them were saying. Because there was a report that was flying around at the time that what the GAC when it came 3 weeks ago, I think they were here 3 weeks ago, was that the Mojisola will resign, this man will step back in. They will to now resign. Then both of them will be made to resign, and then they will bring in a new speaker that will be able to come from Lagos. Those were a lot of permutations. But yesterday, most of them were saying there was nothing like that because this man immediately he presided over the house. He what's it called? He adjourned the house indefinitely. He adjourned sitting indefinitely. So that doesn't seem like he's going to resign anytime soon. With the feelers that we're hearing from that he's going to resign all this.
Yes. Anyways, let's look at other stories that are on the Punch. We have Rivers budget. Fubara Assembly set for fresh showdown. Government alerts supporters. So another story is Ramadan. Kebbi, Bauchi, Kano rebuff Khan says schools remains closed. Does this mean that the schools around these areas are not in session? I'm glad.
That's what, of course. So it was declared those 5 states: Kano, Kebbi, Bauchi, and Katsina. So Ramadan started on Saturday, and then they declared 5-week break to allow students to fast. So can private school owners, proprietors of private schools, wrote a letter that this is actually not going to go down well with them, and so those back and forth has been there between the government. And so the government of Bauchi and Kano declared that both private and public schools should be shut down for 5 weeks.
But while other states are their students out of schools as well, or this is just for this?
It's just for these states.
Just these 3
states. 3 states that declared it. But remember, it's a government pronouncement. So the government house that said all schools should be shut down. But I think all that we talk about is the case of the Rivers State. Sorry if I can't be able to just chime in into that, because I mean remember we've known that is another theater of crisis every now and then that you always be able to hear.
Something from
the judgment on Friday changed the dynamics. You can even see Mr. Wike dancing, go to church to say yes. At least more like as if I've seen the head of my enemy.
Mr. Wike is quite a character.
So yesterday when the house convened, they gave him 48 hours. The 24 lawmakers that were eventually reinstated by the Supreme Court. So gave Mr. Fubara 48 hours. The house was actually led by Martin Ameole. So they said they gave him 48 hours to represent the 2025 budget. Don't forget, this budget has been signed. They started implementation already.
This is March.
This is March already. So he has presented the budget to the 4 house panel, the 4-member house, because the other 4 members that were loyal to him were the ones. So the remaining 27 lawmakers were the ones that said that budget is an anomaly, is an illegality. He has to represent it to them again for them to now be able to deliberate over it and pass it as a bill. So they gave him 48 hours, whether that would be the case. And then immediately that happened, the governor went to church as well to say it's not the only thing that can likely happen to him is to leave office. Leaving office does not mean that he's going to leave the earth. So he would rather, because he knows anything can happen. I mean, the way this is going, they would likely be able to initiate impeachment proceeding against him. And his issue is also seeing the writing on the wall. It might likely be impeached or something.
Okay. Another one is on the Punch. We still have federal government, NNPCL, work out 7.7 trillion fuel subsidy debt payments. Also, we have FEC approves 734 billion naira for Oyo Obonosho roads and others. And then we also have NNPCL stations have reduced, which is this is like we just spoke on. I think it's just all over the place. And then we have residents lament as disco plunges Lagos Air Force Base into a 12-day blackout.
Okay, federal government? Okay, I didn't get that.
Yes.
But I think you want to talk about this anyway. Maybe.
And then we have the federal government avoiding confrontation with governors over mining sites.
Avoiding confrontation over mining sites.
And then we'll look at Vanguard. And in Vanguard, we have it's still the Rivers crisis.
Okay, I'm not scared of anything.
He says,
I think the man is scared.
Says, I'm not
what
scared
I listened to this voice yesterday.
Of anything.
No, man, that man is scared. What I can see is countenance. Yeah. You will see element of he knows more or less fear in him, riddled over him. Yeah. You know, and that's why he just mentioned at least. The only thing they will say is for me to leave office. Leaving office does not mean I'm going to leave the earth. And I'm sure you'll be able to mention that as riders, right? Well, says the worst that can happen
is leaving the office. He assures of government's victory in ongoing crisis. Anyways, let's look at the showstopper for today, which is our cartoon of the day on the Business Day. We always have interesting cartoons and caricatures. And on today, it's tagged allegedly. So this word has been making rounds on social media. I don't think that I've heard this word being used so much.
That the way it has actually been used
everywhere. It's like someone would just type on their WhatsApp status allegedly. So right here we have
Natasha.
That's Senate President. I don't know if that is her, but it's a caricature that looks like her. And then we have a caricature of a woman and a caricature of a man undressed, tying, I think, what looks like a towel with a cap on his head. And behind him is what looks like the National Assembly. It's kind of like she has this bubble of thought and she's running, whoever it is running away from the man.
Okay, so I mean, it's first of all, two things. Allegedly, maybe the word, because in fact, you know, if it's actually been used in journalistic parlance, in journalistic tropes, but immediately, Two-Face Divya, when the issue happened between him and Annie, you know, and he said most of you that always be able to go online and say allegedly, you don't have you don't know people always be able to hide under that and say. Allegedly, of course. So by the time you want to be able to hold them to say, why are you saying what you don't know? They'll just say, oh, allegedly, this is what happened. Exactly. So, but this is actually not unconnected to the latest outburst and the latest revelation by the Kogi Central Senator, Madam Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan, about the Senate President. And that has, you know, and then the issue there have been like, okay, he's trying to be able to get down because he's actually making all attempts, you know, to sexually harass or sexually be able to get down with her, and which she has vehemently rejected. Whether that is the case, in fact, the Senate's spokesperson was virtually, most of the media houses yesterday to say there is no petition to that effect, but they were asking that what this woman said on Arise TV on Friday has the Senate considered to be able to look into it. But what we are really asking for is maybe an investigation should be carried out into it.
Yeah, an investigation should be carried out because
whether fully those allegations were really, really true.
I also would like if the Senate President himself said something, because his wife, in fact, was his wife. I don't think that. But the wife, you see what happened in Akwa Ibom yesterday. We need him.
The wife has even charged her to court yesterday. Though the wife of the Senate President took her to court. Akwa Ibom women were all over the streets in Uyo yesterday, protesting seriously against Natasha.
I understand.
You understand?
But who the person, the prime
suspect involved here
has not said anything. It's just like someone coming to speak for me. They can't defend. According to the story, the wife was not there, and the Akwa Ibom women on the streets were not there as well. So I think that you should come out and say,
but what I'm saying
this is true or this is not true.
Sometimes all of them, okay, look, for example, just on a very short note, look at Lagos State. The crisis in the Lagos House of Assembly, the governor hasn't come out to say anything, for example. I don't know whether that's a new strategy they're adopting now.
I don't think it's, the governor, I don't think it involves him heavily.
But he does. You know what I'm saying?
It does involve him, but he's not.
Because he needed to be able to pass through. Most of his policy, we have to be able to pass through the Lagos House of Assembly. I'm just saying, maybe these are strategies all of them are using to just remain silent, and they're just trying to say that maybe and then boil over, and then maybe that's one strategy they just adopted, that instead of actually be able to give it some dignifying, because some of them will say that my response will just seem as if I'm dignifying what we're saying, but I will just be able to maintain my silence, which sometimes is actually considered golden.
Okay. No no problem if that is the case.
And
we could go on and on, and you know, in dissecting these stories this morning. But this is where we're going to bring it to a wrap this morning on the newspaper review segment of the BDTV Breakfast Show. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Norma Obona.
Thank you very much so much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure doing this with you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll just stay tuned. We're going to see you for the big story.